Breaking Talent, Break London.
Never been half-hearted, I put my all. Forfeited all just to answer my call. Wearing the scars of the wars.
Hi Tara, you're from Alfie. Could you tell us more about what Alfie does?
Yeah, so Alfie, or the long name Alliance for Inclusive Education, is a national campaigning network. We're based down in South London in Brixton, but we cover the whole of the country. We sometimes do a bit of work in Europe, and every now and again a bit of international work around the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. But our main work is campaigning for inclusive education for all disabled learners. So as an organisation, we're very small, there's only 7 of us, and we're all part-time, and we're all disabled people. But I think what makes us a little bit different from other disabled people's organisations, or DPOs, is that we have a very particular role and really value the role of people that we call allies. So people that support us as disabled people to do Alfie's work, and that group will be parents of disabled children and young people, it'll be teachers, it'll be educational psychologists, college lecturers, but it's anyone, I guess, who shares the same vision that we have, that is inclusive education must be a right for all disabled learners.
Why? Why should inclusive education be a right?
I guess because as disabled people, we, you know, to feel part of society as adults, Joanne, it's about feeling part of society from the beginning of our lives. So those of us who experienced special school, particularly residential special school. I went to residential special school when I was 16 months, so I was still a baby, you know, and I left school at 2 days before my 16th birthday. I'd never met a non-disabled person my own age before. I returned to mainstream life. You know something? I had no idea what to say to non-disabled people. I didn't like who I was as a disabled person, because the school had really hammered home that we as disabled people must do all that we can to appear normal. Now, you can see, you and I are both kind of like, have very obvious physical impairments, so there's no hiding it, you know.
No.
But I felt, probably for 10 years after school, that I needed to do everything to pretend to be a non-disabled person. You know something? It was exhausting.
What did you do? Give me examples of what you used to do.
Well, I guess I never talked about being a disabled person. I never asked for help. I used to exhaust myself travelling on public transport and carrying things that were just really hard for me to do. But what I couldn't absolutely ever accept was that I needed someone else to help me do stuff, because actually it would make my life a lot easier. I have to say, kind of many years later, I'm a very different person, and I feel much more confident about who I am as a disabled person. But going back to your question, I guess that's why inclusion, because without that sense of being part of society right from the beginning, from the moment that we arrive, you can't ever make up for that once you become kind of a young adult. At 16, our sense of the world is pretty much set, you know. And if you've been separated from mainstream life, your sense of where you fit in mainstream life never quite gets there.
I know when I went to specialist disabled schools, the asking for help was not something we were told to do. The asking for help, you should be able to do it on your own. And I know as disabled people, we find that hard, really difficult. What was the point when you knew, I can ask for help and be as independent as any of you lot out there?
You know, it was probably, I was in my late 20s, and I'd left banking. I'd worked in banking straight after college, which was a disaster in terms of how I was treated. However, I left there kind of in my late 20s and worked for a disability organisation, but the important thing there was that I met a politicised disabled person, a woman, who told me about the social model of disability. And you know something? It was like a light switching on. I suddenly felt that I was A, a human being, but B, someone who had value, because, you know, the social model tells us that it's not the fact I don't have any hands, or that I wear artificial legs that is the problem. It's the way people respond to me because I don't have any hands or I wear artificial legs. But years before that, I was living with the view that we would call, wouldn't we, the medical model of disability, which is, you know, it's my responsibility to change who I am and how I operate, and that I must do everything I can to fit in with mainstream life, which, you know, is impossible, absolutely impossible. The social model, you know, is like all of that nonsense lifting off your shoulders. And you know something, I think probably I didn't start living my life, you know, for the person that I am now until that moment.
Okay. Down the road from here, we have the Olympic Park, and next week the Paralympics are starting. What are your views on the Paralympics coming to London 2012 this year?
I am, as a retired Paralympian, I am really, really excited. I think the last time I was in London was in 1948, before you and I were born.
Yes.
And you know something, I don't think it's going to come back to London in my lifetime, and so this is an opportunity to celebrate on home soil disabled people's sporting achievements. But it's much more than that for London, isn't it? You know, I felt such a buzz in this city during the Olympics.
Definitely.
And I'm really sure, because I felt it when I arrived here today in Stratford, the growing kind of expectation around next week. I'm really excited. I've got tickets for the opening ceremony, and I think Londoners are going to respond to the Paralympics in the same way that they did the Olympics, with real positivity, with a real sense of there is something spectacular happening in this city.
A lot of Londoners, especially, were sceptical about the Olympics. What did you feel at best before it all started?
Oh yeah, I think I wasn't sceptical about it. I think what I thought of, you know, this is an opportunity for disabled people in this country to really try to get some positive messages about who we are, who our community is, what our history is, and the platform must be London 2012. And the reason why I kind of felt that was because I remember before London even got the Games, the way the London 2012 team talked about the Olympics and the Paralympics with real equity, I thought, there's the opportunity. That has never happened before. And I think that is reflected in the fact that this is the first Paralympic Games that is a sellout.
Yeah.
You know, Paralympic Games that I was competing in, I would just remember the stadiums and the swimming, the aquatic centre just being rammed full with people who had no idea why they were there. London, people paying to see Paralympic athletes. Absolutely amazing.
You got tickets for swimming as well. How did you get your tickets, and is that because you're a gold medalist Paralympian? And could you hook me up with any tickets?
You're joking, aren't you? That's probably something that I'm going to moan about, the fact that as a retired Paralympian, nothing. I had to buy all of my tickets.
No way, I don't believe that.
Absolutely.
No way.
No preferential treatment whatsoever. And I think that's probably a sad thing.
Yes.
But you know something? I'm not going to let it ruin it.
Okay, brilliant. Where did you keep your gold medal?
If I told you that, Joe, I'd have to...
Okay, I want to know if it's in the toilet, because you know people who win the Oscars and the Grammys, they keep it in the toilet. That's all I want to know. Do you keep it?
I keep all my medals in a... I'm not going to say where in the house, but in a place that is too bizarre to talk about.
Okay, cool. That's fine.
I'm probably not very respectful of the whole sporting achievement.
That's all right. Were you proud when you got your medals? I know you said that there wasn't a lot of support back home because I don't think people knew about Paralympics and disabled sport athletes. Were you proud of yourself though?
Of course I was. I got to the pinnacle of my swimming career. I was never going to be able to get any further other than repeat the gold medal and repeat the world record. That was all I was ever going to be able to do in the future. And even my first Paralympics was in 1984 and then 88 in South Korea. And even in that time, I noticed a real shift in the way people were beginning to think about the value of the Paralympics. But I do remember being interviewed after winning my gold, someone saying, "Oh, everyone at home must be really proud." And I said, I'm fantastically proud about my achievement, but I don't think anyone back home knows that I've got here other than my friends and family, which I know sounds a bit bitter, and I'm not bitter about it at all, because what I've seen since 1992 is a fundamental shift in that. So suddenly there are Paralympic athletes now that are as good as household names.
Yeah.
Paralympic athletes, or at least that are gold medal potential, now get funding. When I was competing, I was swimming 6 days a week, twice a day, and working full time.
Yeah.
That is a strange thing. And now, kind of 20 years later, people, all types of Paralympic athletes are being properly supported and properly valued.
Really?
I think in terms of attitudinal change, we've still got a long way to go in terms of particularly athletes with high levels of impairment. But something, we're on the right road towards it.
We're definitely getting there, and the fact that London 2012 has reintroduced disabled people with intellectually disabled people into the 2012 Paralympics, I think, is a great look.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's absolutely about the positive ethos that has been driving London 2012. A lot of that kind of stuff is still tricky for me, the way we as disabled people have to be medically classified in terms of where which groups we're going to swim with or compete with, etc., etc. And something, the whole scandal, what kind of scandal was it really? The fact is they never ever should have been banned.
No.
The problem is was how they measured
Yes.
learning difficulty, not in the athletes themselves.
And what legacy would you like to leave on the world? When Tara Flood's not around anymore, what would you like us to remember you? What footprint do you want to leave on the world?
Oh God, that's a massive question, isn't it? I think since I competed 20 years ago. A lot has changed in my life and disabled people's lives in the last 20 years, but I still think those Paralympic values have real value in disabled people's lives. So you've got determination, inspiration, courage, and equality. I used to struggle with the word courage because, it was so linked to this myth that the media loved to sort of peddle, that we were all triumphing over tragedy. The reality was, for me, courage was more about fronting up to the kind of prejudice and disableism we as disabled people were facing on a daily basis. And I still think those 4 values really resonate with disabled people now. When you think of the challenges that we're now facing around welfare reform, that we're facing around social care and education cuts, determination to resist against that, courage to actually resist it and join with others to campaign against it and to fight for equality. How can that not still be relevant? So I guess the legacy is about continuing to make those relevant for disabled people now and in the future.
Wicked, you will do that. It will happen. And I really just want to know this. When was the last time you faced disableism and what happened?
How long have you got? We were saying before, it's like kind of on a daily basis.
Yeah, I know, yeah, definitely.
And some days you think, I can front up to that when you're feeling particularly strong or whatever. And some days you think, I've just had enough of it.
Yes.
Just stop with
Yes.
that. So it's a daily thing, and you just get on and either front up to it when it happens, or you just soak it up and think, something. That's why I do what I do.
Okay. Well, then go to the Guardian website because there's a really good example Tara has, but I'm not going to say it because it's quite embarrassing.
Yeah, but we all, as disabled people, we experience it on a daily basis.
Yeah,
eh?
even just with people not talking to us or just staring at us and maybe not asking us, if we need, not even if we need help, but okay, if you want to know what's gone wrong with me, ask me.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Shall I give you a really current example of today coming here to Stratford?
Perfect.
On the Jubilee line, which is amazingly accessible, I have to say.
Step-free access.
It was a busy carriage apart from where I was on the carriage.
Okay.
So I don't think I've got an issue with body odour today, but I can tell you there must have been 6 seats around me that were empty, and I thought, what's that about when everybody else is crushed in at the other end? But hey, it gave me room to breathe on the train.
Brilliant. Tara, what do you feel the legacy of the 2012 Paralympics will be on the world itself and London?
Well, I guess it's about disabled people being seen as equal members of society, equal citizens, for London to be seen as, you know, getting there in terms of access. I've been a bit disappointed by the legacy areas that there have been around London 2012, because I don't know about you, they haven't felt very relevant to me. So you've got youth, but that feels very vague in terms of what it describes. Regeneration of the local area. I'm not sure whether or not local people genuinely feel that their area has been truly regenerated, gentrified perhaps, but I'm not sure regenerated. And then other things around work, and I think the legacy must be for us to continue to raise questions around what that legacy means on the 10th of September, the day after the closing ceremony for the Paralympics. What does that mean for me as a disabled person, for you, Joanne, and for every other disabled person in this country? Yes, it is about the Paralympic values and what we can do to implement them into society, but it is about holding the legacy, the people holding the legacy to account in terms of implementation.
Is that implementations of access to sporting venues for people who are disabled, and just having access to shops and access to places to go to and transport, stuff like that?
It is that, but for me it's something much bigger, you know. It's about celebrating who we are as people, that we're not burdens on society, we're not benefit scroungers, we're not work shy, all of that kind of hate speak that has come out in recent times from the government and in the media. But we are valuable members of society who contribute in many, many different ways that might be about work, but it might not be. But that contribution, that place in society is of equal value.
Do you think that will be seen? Do you think people are going to look at that, or they're just going to look at disabled people and go, I hate it when I'm asked, have you done the marathon then? And it's not every wheelchair user does the marathon. I do get annoyed by that.
Yeah. I guess it's because the media are quite keen to box us off into tiny definitions that we're either this or we're that or something else. And I think, but you know something, I think those of us who are active disabled people, and I don't mean physically active, I mean politically active, really are showing leadership around what that legacy needs to look like for us and how we redefine it for us and our community.
And what do you think about the Channel 4 trailers? Superhumans? Yeah, I thought that too.
I've not seen, and you know, David Cameron said this morning, it sent me into a spin. He described us as human but extra.
Yeah.
I thought, no, I'm not. I'm just human. That's all I want to be. That's all I want to be recognised. And these are just people who have the most amazing sporting talent. That's the extra, if you want to call it an extra, but that's not what he was suggesting. I dislike it. The thing I did like about the Channel 4 adverts was the strap line of "Thanks for the warm up."
I love that.
I really love that. I have some concerns about some of the stuff that Channel 4 are doing around, you know, the Jon Snow Paralympics show.
No,
I think I'm really worried about some of the language that's being used. And the other day, weirdly, they had a doctor on explaining a particular impairment, and I thought I didn't really understand what the value of that was, because the Paralympics are not about impairment.
Exactly.
They're about sporting achievement.
Cool, brilliant, thank you.
Great, cheers, Jan.
Thanks.
My faith and my faith will keep me alive. Spirit something that you will see in my eyes.
Breaking talent. Break London.